Hello, students. Good evening. Today's topic is on society and social justice. Today, we are going to discuss about a very important feature of the Indian society, that is caste system in India. So, we are going to discuss about caste system. Let's understand whether caste is fading in the 21st century or whether it is still there. What is the situation? Let's understand that. Now, let's begin with understanding the caste in India. Now, in this video session, I'm going to basically discuss about very briefly about the origin of the caste system, the features of the caste system, okay, features till date, and then we are going to discuss about features from ancient period, the British impact of British rule, post independence, and what is the present situation, current situation of caste in India. Is caste really fading or just is it just hidden? Okay, it's a very it's a situation where we say that it is in some aspects it is fading, but in some aspects it is very much there. Now, what are these? Let's discuss. To begin with, firstly, let's understand about the origin of caste. We all know that the word caste is an English word. All right, so basically it means that caste was not in use in ancient period. Then what was it called? See, the origin of caste can be traced back to the term varna, which literally means skin color, and the origin of this can be traced towards the migration of Aryans into India, migration of Aryans, okay, into India. Now, what has migration of Aryans got to do with Varna? The word Aryan means learned. Aryans considered themselves superior and they wanted to differentiate between them and the locals who were there in India then. So, that is the reason why they brought about a difference between them and the locals. They called the locals as Dasyas, Dasus, and so on, but they called themselves as Shweta Varna, and they called the locals as Krishna Varna. This is the origin of a Varna system. This is how discrimination or distinguishing within the society has begun in India. Shweta Varna, Krishna Varna was the first form of division, social stratification in India, which was purely based on skin color. Eventually, what they did, they later on changed this. What they did is the twofold theory. See, it is twofold here. Why is it twofold? Because you had only two divisions. One was the Shweta Varna, the other was the Krishna Varna. Now, what they did is they slowly transformed this twofold system into a fourfold system and four divisions. And remember, these divisions were basically based on the occupation. Okay, if at all you were into learning, teaching, then you were called as teaching, performing rituals, and all. You were called as Brahmins. Okay, if at all you were into protection, leadership, protection, basically offering protection for others, you were called Kshatriyas. Then if at all you were into trade, agriculture, trade, and so on, you were called as Vaishyas. And lastly, if at all you worked as servants, you served others, you were called as Shudras. This is how the fourfold Varna system evolved. Here also, we call it as Varna. We don't call it as caste. Caste is a term that came into India only after the Britishers started ruling India, but it was only called as Varna. Now, let's understand this. Please remember, early Vedic period this existed. Early Vedic period, initially we had two varnas, they became four. Now, what were the features of this varna system? Please remember, this varna system was an open system of stratification. What do you mean by open system of stratification? Meaning you can change your varna. Okay, stratification. If I didn't like being a Brahmin, I could become a Kshatriya. If I didn't like being Kshatriya, I could become a Vaishya. So it was an open system of stratification. Please remember, apart from being an open system of stratification, it was also a horizontal division. Because it was a horizontal division, it was an open system of stratification. And remember, there was intermingling, interdining, intermarriages, interdining, marriages, everything was allowed because it was a Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. This was the system. It was a horizontal system. It was not vertical. It was not hierarchical. Now, what happened is later Vedic period, everything changes. In the later Vedic period, we come across a significant changes in this. Now, we move on to the later Vedic period. And later, why do we have to understand this? If you have to talk about the current caste system and its features, you have to compare it with what it was earlier. That is the reason it is important that we talk about it. So, later Vedic period, we see this happening. The stratification, which was horizontal, became vertical. It means that it became hierarchical. At the top of the hierarchy were the Brahmins, followed by Kshatriyas, followed by Vaishyas, followed by Shudras. In early Vedic period, Varna system was occupation based, but later Vedic period it became like this, meaning it became birth based. It was not occupation based, it was birth based. And remember, birth linked with occupation, linked with occupation. We started linking birth with occupation. And then because it became a hierarchy, see, hierarchy means above all are the Brahmins, below them are the Kshatriyas, below them are the Vaishyas and the Sudras, which means that in a hierarchy, there will be a line of command, there will be superior subordinate relationship. So we are basically talking about it became a closed system of stratification because it became birth based, closed system of stratification, meaning what? You cannot change your varna of stratification. Now, because it was arranged in a hierarchy, it was decided that they will have caste endogamy, or let's write it as endogamy, meaning you have to marry within your varna. This happened with the evolution of jatis. Now, what is the difference between varna and jatis? Evolution of jatis. See, as sophistication increased in human lives, the more settled we were as a society, there was more sophistication. As sophistication increased in human life, more and more occupations came into existence. These occupations came to be recognized as jatis. For example, you have blacksmith, carpenter, goldsmith. All these people became jatis. So jati is also based on your occupation, but it comes within the varna. It does not. Varna is bigger. You'll only have four varnas: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. But you can have a number of jatis within the varnas. A lot of groups, occupation based groups were formed. They were duly recognized as jatis. As more and more jatis came into being, endogamy started, jati endogamy started. Likewise, there were rules on the concept of purity and pollution came into existence. Now, what is this concept of purity and pollution? Basically, this defined whom you can touch, to whom you can speak, okay, and pollution. Certain castes were considered polluted, certain castes were considered pure. So, this concept paved a way for restrictions on intermingling, meeting each other, okay, interdining. You cannot sit with other varnas and dine. Interdining, inter jati marriages. Okay. Not just this, please remember this also defined your dressing, your food habits, and the caste system, jati system became so evolved that in a village, even today, if this is a village, you will find SCs either at the beginning of the village or towards the end of the village. The Dalits are always placed like this. And then in the center, most of the times you will have OCs, or it will be caste based organizations. Each caste will live in one area. It will be very clearly demarcated. Each area will have a caste belonging to one area will have. So territorial demarcation also happened within villages in terms of residences. Why like this? Why dressing? Why food habits? Because when you look at a person, you should be able to make out his jati. And depending on which jati he belonged to, you would decide whether you can talk to him, eat with him, and so on and so forth. So that was the reason why all this came into existence. And this continued until the British came into India. Once British started ruling, a lot of things have changed. But I'm sure I'm clear with the features. It became birth based. Birth got linked with occupation, meaning if you're born in a particular caste, you have to take up the occupation of that caste. It became a closed system of stratification. The rules of purity and pollution set in. There were very clear rules and regulations as to who can mingle, who can dine together, who can get married, and all that. Okay, now this rigid form continued for centuries in India. Britishers came to India. British started ruling India. Now, what happened during the British rule? As we all know, when Britishers started ruling India, they introduced Western education. One, they introduced industrialization, which paved way for modernization and urbanization. Now we are going to discuss what was the impact of all these and urbanization. What was the impact of all this on caste system? And apart from this, did Britishers do anything else that had a bearing on the caste system? Now, Western education promoted rationalism, and this led to the questions. This resulted in questioning rules of caste, questioning rules of purity and pollution. Remember, it was the British who brought the term caste to India. It evolved from a Portuguese term called casta. Okay, so questioning rules of purity and pollution. People started questioning this. People started asking what is the authenticity of these rules, and we had a lot of socio religious movements, lot of which focused on the emancipation of the Dalits, the downtrodden of the society. Okay, now questioning rules of purity and pollution, paving way for movements. And apart from that, Western education also promoted modern occupations like doctors, engineers, for which you don't need your birth does not matter. It is merit based. So it promoted a lot of modern occupations which slowly delinked birth with occupation. So the link between caste, birth, and occupation was broken. Especially caste and occupation was broken because of modern education. It promoted independent careers. Also, industrialization started. See, when you talk about industrialization, it means mass production. Okay, we are going into mass production. Now, in an industry, a lot of people work together. In an industry, is it possible that you will say that I don't want to work with another caste person? No, all of you have to wear the same uniform. You have to go and work in the same industry. You have to work with everybody around. You cannot pick and choose and say only my caste people should be there. I will not touch him. He's not from my caste. He's from a lower caste. Not possible. So industrialization to an extent made it difficult to follow rules related to purity and pollution. It was further it became further difficult with modernization and urbanization. Industrialization paved way for modernization and urbanization. Now, what happens is you have modern means of transport. You're traveling in a train, okay? Can you say that I am going to only enter that bogie where you have only people of my caste, or I'll enter a train which is driven by a person of my caste? Not possible. You don't know the caste of the person sitting beside, and you can't even ask. So, modern means of transportation. Then, urbanization, one of the basic features of urbanization is smaller dwellings. You don't have a lot of space. So, because of which you cannot have this territorial demarcation of caste. You know, you say that my caste people will stay here. No territorial demarcation of residences, not possible. See, here it is not that you're out of choice, you're not doing it. It is that you don't have a choice. That is the reason you're not following it. So basically, in the British period, what happened is because of the developments in communication and infrastructure, in terms of education, in terms of the economy, especially advent of industrialization, the rules and regulations related to caste, especially the link between caste and occupation, it started totally breaking, slowly breaking, because Western education provided alternative careers. Industrialization provided alternative career. You could go and work in a factory. Urbanization and modernization made it difficult to stick to rigid caste rules. Now, for moving forward, apart from this, how did British administration impact the caste system? Did it weaken the caste system? Did it strengthen the caste system? Unfortunately, British administration led to caste solidarity. Caste solidarity was also witnessed because of this these socio-religious movements. Now, what do you mean by caste solidarity? Your your expression of your caste identity, and you solidarity is coming together, uniting in the name of caste. Uniting in the name of caste happened because of socio-religious reforms. People started get becoming aware of their caste and the importance of caste identity. So, one, caste solidarity also got promoted because the British introduced census. They started enumerating the castes, and they said, depending on which caste you belong to, you will have certain rights and privileges. So, if they are saying that only these castes will get land to tilt, or land from the government, access to land from the government, everybody wanted to make it into that caste list. The caste resisted. Then they said that we are going to make special provisions for the downtrodden caste. So there were people who wanted to be listed as that. One was census, the second was special provisions. I don't know how many of you are aware, but basically the terms scheduled caste and scheduled tribe owe their origin to the Government of India Act 1935. Because in the Government of India Act 1935, very clearly the Britishers said we are going to give certain special provisions for some castes and some tribes. Now the question is, who are these castes and tribes? They were mentioned in the schedule of the act. That is the reason they became scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So caste solidarity was there because of census, because of special provisions. In fact, during the British period, we saw the consolidation of caste. Caste identity became more and more visible, more and more strong. Now, post independence, what were the changes? Post independence, what happened was government firstly in the constitution promised social justice, promised equality. Okay, equality, because of which we had provisions like abolition of untouchability, abolition of untouchability, no discrimination in the name of caste, and so on and so forth. To take it further, there were many laws enacted, especially like the Prevention of Untouchability Act, which later became Civil Rights Act, and then it became the SC/ST Atrocities Act. Then there were several other measures taken by the government in terms of reservations and schemes, special provision schemes for these communities. Okay. Now, all this, what was the impact of this? The first impact was undoubtedly there was more awareness Okay, this awareness resulted in people wanting to enhance their caste status or their status. Basically, they demanded equal status. So awareness was increased. There were legal safeguards in place which to an extent could address discrimination. Okay, now reservations have actually to an extent uplifted certain sections on the lower strata of the caste system, but undoubtedly, reservation also promoted caste solidarity. Now, today we witness a lot of anti-reservation and pro-reservation movements. There are certain communities which say we want reservation. Some communities say we don't want reservation. There are, movements for subcategorization within caste, especially SC. We saw subcategorization. ST also there are demands. So reservations actually is like a Pandora box. It actually paved the way for a lot of caste solidarity, caste-based movements in India. Okay. Now, another major thing is, see, these measures, especially the measures taken by the government to promote employment and entrepreneurship in the lower strata, actually resulted in the increase in the identity of class. Earlier, we only had caste. Class is a concept that was introduced in India. See, I'm not saying that we did not have class differences before, but caste differences were so strong that class barely mattered. And in fact, caste and class were almost aligned. The upper castes were the upper class, the lower castes were the lower class. So it was almost aligned until the British period. During the British period, because of modern education and all, slowly caste and class became delinked, they became separate, and there were differences. Caste and class, this differences started. Even a lower caste person could be of a higher class because class is defined by your economic status, and a upper caste person could belong to a lower class. Now, this class divide or this class identity started becoming more and more strong post independence, and this strengthened because of various reasons: developments in economy, market dynamics, also the government's measures for various sections of society contributed to the strengthening of class. What I'm trying to tell you is, post independence, as we progressed, the importance that caste had, similar importance was gained by class also. But there was no link between caste and class because, irrespective of your caste, you could belong to the upper class, middle class, or lower class. Okay, so this was what happened during the post independence. Now, what is the present scenario of caste in India? Where does caste stand in India today? Okay, now let's look at, before I talk about it, there is another major effect on caste in India, that is globalization. Globalization has actually paved way for not just borderless markets, but also seamless movement of people, cultures, and so on. Now, what did globalization do? It actually helped the lower caste also to uplift themselves, because there is a greater mobility amongst all castes, including the lower strata. Mobility, they could move out of the country, they could lead their own life wherever they wanted. Okay. Globalization undoubtedly also helped in increasing the class status of the lower castes. Okay. Globalization also paved way for the spread of caste consciousness outside India. Now, wherever Indians went, they they took their caste along. I don't know if you're aware, but there are many countries across the world where Indians reside, and you have caste-based organizations abroad formed by Indians for Indians. Okay, so we went, we took our caste along. Globalization had this effect. Now, what is the present scenario of caste system? Where does caste stand today? Is it really fading, or is it still visible? Now, this is like, one side it is fading, the other side it is becoming visible. How? Let's talk about it. See, we have to understand that there is a growing importance of class, okay, because of which, to a large extent, the importance of caste gradually is decreasing. Okay, there is a growing importance of class. Then urbanization promotes. In urbanization, we say there is a cloak of anonymity. What is cloak of anonymity? Frankly, we do not know who stays in our neighborhood, who stays in the next house beside me. We don't bother. We don't try to understand who they are, where they are from, what they do, which caste they belong to. We all live under a cloak of anonymity in urbanization. In our urban setup and modern means of transport, caste cannot be carried forward. So, to a large extent, this idea of caste does not rattle us in every minute of our life. Okay, this is there. Then there is also a lot of importance given to meritocracy. Your success is not defined only by your caste. To a large extent, your success is defined by your merit. Your see, there is something called as acquired status and ascribed status. Caste is your ascribed status, whereas um, class is your acquired status. So, acquired status is becoming more and more important in India than ascribed status. And then there's a lot of education and awareness and assertion also of caste. I still remember Baba Sahib's birthday is celebrated like a festival, especially in Maharashtra. And they take out a julus and all that. Most of the times it is done by the Dalits, but a lot of OCs also participate. So a lot of awareness and education has come stepped in. Now, what about the visible areas? Firstly, very unfortunately, even today, we find caste-based violence. We witness it. Unfortunately, we witness it in terms of honor killing. Now, let me correct this. Whenever we talk about caste endogamy, do we follow rigid caste endogamy today? Frankly, to some extent, caste endogamy has come down. Okay, because when it is about a girl and a boy belonging to two equal castes, people don't usually object. If you look around, you'll understand what I'm telling you. If an OC boy wants to marry an OC girl, they are okay with it. The parents do agree. But imagine an OC child, bride or groom wants to marry an SC groom or bride. There is a problem. So caste endogamy to a large extent is fading when it is amongst equals. But it is rigid when it is still about an caste marrying a lower caste. So rigidity is still there when it is an upper caste plus lower caste. If it is upper caste plus upper caste, you will not find that kind of resistance. Caste endogamy has a dichotomous situation. Now, caste based violence is still existing because we still see honor killing happening, especially when, as I said, it is amongst unequals. Then the next important thing that makes caste perpetuate, that makes caste to continue, is politicization of caste. And this politicization of caste usually takes the form of casteism. What is casteism? You don't give credit to any merit. You only give credit to caste. My caste person, he'll occupy prominent post. Why? Because he's not qualified, because he belongs to my caste. There's a lot of politicization of caste. Caste-based politics is increasing by the day. Caste is perpetuating because of politics. So, politicization of caste is a very important reason for the visibility of caste. Then we talk about the impact of digitalization. Do you think digitalization can have an impact? Undoubtedly. You come across a lot of videos spreading hate speech against a different caste. You also caste identity is solidified by caste based matrimonies. These promote caste solidarity, and then visible with caste based occupations formed worldwide organizations, sorry, not occupations, organizations are being formed. So one side we see them slowly fading away, the other side it is visible. Then what is the current scenario? If I have to wind it off and if I have to conclude, then how will I conclude? The conclusion is simple. It is caste is visible but subtle. It is not very vibrant. Okay, you can feel its existence, but it is not very strong. It does not glitter you. So what do I mean by this? For example, okay, when you talk about your professional relation, if you're working in an organization, you will not really bother about caste. Okay, but when it comes to your personal life, especially the choice of your friends or your whom your kids are choosing as friends, definitely your parents will ask which caste is he or she from. Oh, this caste, please be careful. So personal life, caste still plays a prominent role. In your social setting, with whom do you talk? With whom do you mingle? With whom do you meet regularly? It has a bearing. Caste has a bearing. Okay, the second is, so social interactions, caste has a lot of impact. Secondly, when we come to the economic sphere, especially in the private sector, beyond a doubt, trust me, there is a lot of support in terms of cost, especially when it comes to resources, especially when it comes to employment, especially when it comes to business, exchange of business. My caste person, I'll help him more. So usually economic sphere, you will find this resources and employment. But most visible, undoubtedly, is politics. And remember, reservations also fuel this. Okay, so caste today, you should say, is not fading away. It is there. It is fading away in the sense that it is not strong, but it is still visible but subtle. You will not feel its existence very, very strongly. So, this is about caste, very important topic for society and social justice. Next week, when we meet for society and social justice, I'll try to pick up some contemporary topics like we had this dowry death. So we'll discuss about current topics. Juvenile delinquency is another important topic that we have to talk because there's a lot of increase in the crime by the juveniles. So we're going to discuss this next week when we meet on society topics. I'll see you all again on Monday with a live on Indian polity. Thank you. Bye bye.